When I think of Black History Month, I think of inventions. Like, I think of peanut butter, I think of traffic lights, I even think of the super soaker. I recall the handful of Black inventors I learned about growing up. But then I realized that I only know them in that very limited context. Who were they outside their contributions they provided to the world? So I found out. Yep, I dug in. I did my research. I Googled, I found some interviews, I read some articles, and I perused through many a books. And soon I'll tell you what I found out. Welcome to another episode of I'll Tell You What. The podcast that's all love Black history. I'm Ashley, your favorite raconteuse that loves to tell you these stories every single Monday. To everybody that is watching on the tube of you, I just want to tell you thank you so much, because just a few days ago, we surpassed 10,000 subscribers. That is a huge accomplishment. And not only that, we also hit over 150,000 followers on TikTok. That is huge. And I say we because we are all in this together. So truthfully, for someone who started this essentially 2 years ago to get to this point, it is not lost on me. I thank y'all so much. If you are not following I'll Tell You What on the tube of you, make sure to do so. Hit that subscribe button, turn those notifications on so you know when new episodes and new videos drop. Like I told y'all, I'm dropping a story about Love Black History every single day. So if you're watching the full episode right now or listening to the full episode right now, this will give you a few days worth, but definitely make sure that you're following on all social platforms, because that's where a lot of this will be. Also, to celebrate all of this, the milestones and it being Black History Month, I'm going to be throwing a few giveaways this month. So that's another reason to make sure that you are locked in on the tube of you. Also, you're going to want to make sure you join on Patreon. I would love to see so many of y'all over there where I could give y'all some of these Love Black History stories that I just can't tell y'all. Not in Gen Pop. So with that being said, again, thank y'all for all the love, all the support. Last plug, you head to I'llTell.com if you want to get some merch. There's some really cute Black History related merch there where you could definitely show your appreciation all year long. But with that being said, let me tell y'all about these inventors and their lives. Marie Van Britten Brown and her husband Albert fell in love and created not only a family, but the first home security system. So Marie was born in 1922 in Queens, Jamaica, New York. It's not necessarily known when or how she met her husband and when they got married, but I do know that he was an electronic technician and she worked in a completely different field. She was in nursing. They lived in Jamaica, Queens, and truthfully, it wasn't the best side of town. It really wasn't a great area. As parents, because they had two kids, they were concerned about the violence in the area and just the crime rate overall. So with that being said, they sought a solution to help ease their fears a little bit. It's assumed the idea for the security system came from Marie, as she was noted as the lead inventor on the patent. So with her ingenuity and with his electronic background, they came together and made the home security system. This system that they created was not just a simple alarm, it was essentially the prerequisite to the Ring camera. Mind you, this was 1966 that they put this together, and the patent wasn't approved until 1969. Okay, so very much ahead of their time. The New York Times wrote it was, quote, an audio-video system for household protection. Operated from a bedroom, it can be used to scan and interview a visitor at the door and admit him or sound an alarm. The Times also wrote, quote, with a patented system, a woman alone in the house could alarm the neighborhood immediately by pressing a button. It installed in a doctor's office, it might prevent holdups by drug addicts. And again, this was 1966/1969, like over 50 years ago. Over 50 years ago. However, home construction companies weren't really interested in this as they felt it was just too expensive to produce and implement. But looking ahead to today, we can all definitely thank them for their just brilliance and innovation, as most of us have some form of household camera alarm system set up in our homes. So this is truly an example of teamwork makes the dream work. I'll be honest, y'all, I knew nothing about the Browns before a few months ago. What about y'all? They didn't teach us about them in school. Not my school. Anywho, let's keep going with another inventor, Samuel Scottron. What was the best thing Samuel Scottron gave us? A cornice, a curtain rod, or Lena Horne? So born in the 1840s, Samuel was a self-made man. He started as a barber, but after watching his customers struggle to see the back of their head with those handheld mirrors, he had an epiphany. He patented the adjustable mirror, which allowed people to see their reflection from multiple angles, something we probably take for granted now. And honestly, he wasn't done inventing there. That probably just got him started. His mind was constantly thinking of how to make things better. He patented a window cornice in 1880. A curtain rod in 1892, and a supporting bracket in 1893. All these innovations have improved home interiors and home decor. His, quote, porcelain onyx technique was created to make an affordable alternative to luxury stone finishes. I mean, what doesn't this guy think of? But beyond inventing, Samuel was deeply involved in activism and education. He was the first Black member on Brooklyn's Board of Education and co-founded the Cuban Anti-Slavery Society. He was also known as a very prominent Black Republican in Brooklyn. But perhaps his biggest accomplishment lied in the family he created with his wife, Anna Maria Willett, an indigenous woman from New York. Their lineage would eventually include their very, very famous granddaughter, Lena Horne. Did y'all know this? Because again, Samuel was somebody I'd never heard of before only a few weeks ago. All right, so now let's head on to another inventor I can't wait to tell y'all about. After her husband died, Sarah Boone made history. Sarah is known for making improvements to the ironing board, actually making it more inclusive so it could fit women's clothes better. And not just women's clothes, but men's outerwear as well. But when I saw that she was a dressmaker and had 8 kids with her husband James, I was like, okay, it made sense. Just another example of Black women making advancements that benefit everybody. But that's what most people know about her. Her invention, the fact that she had 8 children, the fact that she was a wife. It pretty much stops at that point. But I'm here to tell you there's so much more to Sarah than that. She was born in North Carolina in 1832. Her parents were enslaved, so she was born enslaved. According to Amsterdam News, some say that she was released from enslavement upon marrying her husband James. Now, I don't know when they met or how they met, but on November 25th, 1847, they got married. At that time, I think she was like 15 years old. They moved to a Black neighborhood in Connecticut and made a life there. Sarah was a seamstress, so essentially she was a fashion designer as she made women's dresses, and James was a bricklayer. They saved their money really, really well to the point where they were able to buy a house. Clearly, that had to have been a very huge accomplishment coming from where they came from. But sadly, after about 20-ish or so years of marriage, James would pass away in the 1870s. Now, Sarah didn't just wallow in sadness after his death. This is when she decided she wanted to learn how to read and write. That led her wanting to do something that would make her work smarter, not harder. This was to, quote, produce a cheap, simple, convenient, and highly effective device, particularly adapted to be used in ironing the sleeves and bodies in ladies' garments. So about 20 or so years after her husband died, so when she was about 60, she patented this improved ironing board. Anyway, let's go on to another very well-known inventor, George Washington Carver. George Washington Carver never married. However, he came close, but it just didn't happen. We all know that George Washington Carver was a pioneering scientist, educator, and inventor who was known for changing the farming game due to his research in agriculture. As a man born into enslavement, he became a leading botanist at Tuskegee Institute, where he was head of the agriculture department. There he met the person that we could essentially call his best friend, Della Hunt Logan. Della, a multiracial woman, was a professor at Tuskegee. Quote, until Carver's appearance, Adela was probably the brightest teacher at Tuskegee and maybe the loneliest. She was described as this kind of quirky, yet intelligent, yet very excitable person. In the biography about George Washington Carver by Christina Vela, the author writes that her personality likely annoyed the entire mess out of Dr. Booker T. Washington. Now you might be wondering, is this the person that George Washington Carver almost married? The answer is no. Adela was married to a man named Warren Logan, who was Dr. Washington's, quote, right-hand man. And getting that lady pregnant. They had 9 children, and 6 of them made it to become adults. But seriously, every time you turned around, she was pregnant. However, in this book, Bella kind of speculates that perhaps George was secretly in love with her, but just knew it could never be, so, why even bring it up? But instead, George engaged in a 6-year-long relationship with Adela's little sister, Sarah. Sarah was also a professor at Tuskegee. Bella mentions in the book that George and Sarah realized they had a lot in common, which let them to their relationship. Also, because the proximity to other people even worth entertaining was very, very slim. Black people wasn't traveling like that back then because of the safety risks and also just the cost of everything. So when you meet someone that has a lot of personality traits that you like, you just kind of go with them and see where it lands. So you might be wondering, why 2 people who had so much in common did not take their relationship to the next level? Well, there were many reasons, or at least that's what people assumed. It had to at least have been one of these. So, 1, perhaps it was because George was an agricultural nerd at his core. He said once, quote, what woman would want a husband who is always bringing home insect specimens and tracking dirt all over her parlor? But that kind of sounds like a reason to sabotage a relationship before it gets too far, right? So obviously Sarah would know this is the type of guy he is and would have likely cut it off sooner if that was really a problem. Another reason perhaps was the way George carried himself. Apparently he put absolutely no effort into what he looked like. He looked like a bum. Quote, with his discolored, off-patch coat, hand-crocheted and hand-dyed scarf that he frequently wore in place of a cravat, and fresh flour in his worn lapel, he might have been mistaken for a vaudeville hobo. This likely frustrated Dr. Washington, but perhaps it kind of annoyed Sarah as well. This next reason is listed on his Wikipedia page, and truthfully, after reading through his book, I don't really believe this was the case. But regardless, people speculated that George was either gay or at least bisexual. I mean, if you are a man of a certain age and you have no wife or at least a strong relationship in the very least, it's assumed that you're gay. Because it's like, why are you single? Why don't nobody want you, But probably the real reason for why they did not get married was because of the stark differences in their appearance. Sarah was multiracial. She was black, indigenous, and white. And aesthetically, she was white passing. On the other hand, George was a very dark-skinned man. There might have been some hesitation, truthfully, because of the optics of what they would look like if they got married. A very dark-skinned man with a white woman. Not only is them fighting words, they wouldn't have been able to go anywhere because George would have likely gotten arrested, if not worse. He seriously could have been unalived if anyone assumed he was out here gallivanting with a white woman. So ultimately, they just never made it happen, and eventually Sarah moved to Jersey. I think deep down inside, everyone just knew it just wasn't going to work. Like, outside of Tuskegee, this relationship really had no future. And truthfully, and even kind of sad, is that in reflecting on his life later to different biographers, George would rarely bring up Sarah. So that could lead you to think that maybe that was even still a painful spot in his life. Something that had so much fun and joy and promise that quickly just went away like that. Love, invention, and legacy. That's essentially what all of these inventors have in common in some shape or form. So Marie Van Britten Brown and her husband Albert blended all of that together, living in Jamaica, Queens, New York, where crime was high and left them uneasy. They created the first home security system in 1966. Their design, approved in 1969, functioned like an early Ring camera, allowing homeowners to monitor visitors and sound an alarm if needed. While dismissed as too costly at the time, their invention shaped modern home security. Samuel Scottron transformed everyday life with his inventions. A barber turned innovator, he patented the adjustable mirror, a window cornice, and a supporting bracket. Beyond invention, he was Brooklyn's first Black Board of Education member and a vocal activist. His greatest legacy, however, might be his granddaughter, Lena Horne. Sarah Boone's ingenuity brought a new level of efficiency to ironing. Born into slavery in 1832, she later became a successful dressmaker, wife, and mother of 8. After her husband James' passing, she learned how to read and write, which led to her 1892 patent for an improved ironing board designed for easier pressing of fitted garments. George Washington Carver revolutionized agriculture with crop rotation and peanut-based products, but his personal life was a little bit complicated. His long relationship with Sarah Hunt never led to marriage, possibly due to racial dynamics or personal differences, or both. So, as you can see, from home security to home essentials, these Black innovators shaped history with their inventions and ideas that impact us all today. And maybe now you see them as more than just the inventors that they were, but as lovers and essentially as people. And with that being said, Aisle Runners, that concludes this episode of I'll Tell You What. Don't forget to subscribe, follow here, share, leave a review wherever you get your podcast. Heavy on that part, please. I haven't had a new review in over a year. And definitely come back for another episode in Love Black History. See y'all in the pews.